Ethan Ramirez had always loved the stars. As a young boy, he would lie on the rooftop of his small apartment building and watch the sky for hours, tracing the paths of bright lights, wondering about the stories behind them. Now, at 27, he was a graduate student in astronomy, chasing meteor showers and distant planets with the same excitement he had as a child. Tonight, he had driven out to a remote desert area, far from city lights, to photograph a meteor cluster that scientists had predicted for weeks. The desert stretched endlessly, its sands golden in the dim light of dusk. The wind whispered gently, carrying the scent of dry earth and the faint smell of sagebrush. Ethan parked his old SUV, pulled out his camera, and set up his tripod. The silence of the desert was comforting, a quiet companion that made the stars appear brighter, clearer, almost within reach. He had been alone for hours, adjusting his lens, checking the sky, and occasionally jotting notes in his small notebook. He was just about to take a long exposure shot when a sudden glow appeared on the horizon. At first, he thought it was the tail of a meteor, but the light grew larger, more intense, almost like a torch illuminating the desert floor. Ethan squinted against the brightness, his heart beginning to race. The light didn't fade or move as meteors did. It hovered, pulsating gently, as if breathing. A strange hum filled the air, low and melodic, vibrating through the soles of his shoes. He froze, unsure whether to run or to stay and watch. Curiosity, stronger than fear, kept him rooted. Then, from the center of the glowing column, a figure began to emerge. At first he could only make out a shape, tall and slender, moving with a grace that seemed impossible for a human body. The light around it flickered, forming a kind of halo, and Ethan had to shield his eyes. Slowly, the figure became clearer. It stood fully revealed, and Ethan felt his breath catch in his throat. She was not like any person he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered with a soft silver hue, reflecting the light in a way that made it appear almost liquid. Her eyes were large, almond-shaped, and glowed faintly with a color he could not name, somewhere between violet and deep blue. Her hair floated around her head, as if underwater, giving her an ethereal and otherworldly presence. Ethan blinked several times, convinced he was imagining things, perhaps the effect of desert heat and fatigue. But she was real. She looked directly at him, and for a moment, the desert seemed to disappear around them. Time slowed, and he could feel her gaze on him, examining, curious, almost expectant. The air was filled with a quiet tension, the kind that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Ethan's mind raced. Was she dangerous? Was this a prank? Some extremely advanced hologram he didn't understand? But the way she moved, the way the light clung to her, the tiny ripple of energy around her fingers, it was real. "Hello," he said, his voice barely a whisper. He tried to sound calm, but his throat felt dry, his words fragile. She tilted her head slightly, observing him, then spoke in a voice that was soft, melodic, and somehow comforting. Though her English was broken, "Human, you see me." Ethan's mind reeled. She could speak English, and how did she know he was a human? He took a cautious step forward, raising his hands slightly to show he meant no harm. "Yes, I see you. Who? What are you?" The alien woman Ethan had no idea what else to call her, stepped fully out of the light, now standing on the desert floor. She seemed smaller than before, though still taller than any human woman he had ever known. "I Arya Zala," she said, as if introducing herself. "I travel far. Seek one human." Ethan's brain froze. "Seek me?" he asked, though he had not revealed his name. She nodded slowly. "You understand? Stars you watch, sky I need. One like you." He laughed nervously, shaking his head. "I think you might have the wrong person. I'm just a student. I look at stars for fun. That's it." Her gaze didn't waver. "No, you are correct. You understand more. You must help me." The desert wind picked up, blowing sand across the ground. Ethan could feel the energy around her growing, not threatening, but alive, like a pulse. He took a step back. "Okay, look, I don't know where you came from, or what you are, but I think you need shelter. You shouldn't be out here." Arya Sala seemed to consider his words carefully. "Shelter? Yes. Hide, before others see." "Yes!" She gestured toward the SUV, then back to him. "You, help." Ethan swallowed hard. He had spent most of his life reading about aliens, but never did he imagine meeting one, let alone one who spoke his language and asked him for help so directly. There was no hesitation in her eyes, only an honesty that was difficult to resist. Slowly, he nodded. "All right, get in the car. I'll help you, but you have to tell me everything. Who are you? Where are you from?" She stepped forward and, with surprising ease, got into the SUV. The car was small, but she seemed to fold herself carefully into the seat, her movements graceful and deliberate. Ethan closed the door and turned to her. "Okay, we need to figure this out. First, your name again?" "Arya Zala," she repeated. "From Zernith Travel. Long find human who understands stars. I want, learn, Earth, you help me." Ethan nodded slowly, still trying to process everything. "All right, but you have to trust me. No one can see you. If anyone sees you, it could cause a panic. Are you sure you want to do this?" She met his gaze directly, with a quiet intensity that made his stomach tighten. I must find him. Only him. He realized then that her words were not just formalities. She genuinely wanted him, this one human, for reasons he could not yet understand. His mind raced. Was it an experiment? Was it a misunderstanding? Yet, in her eyes, he saw sincerity. And that sincerity was powerful, almost impossible to ignore. Driving back toward a small cabin he rented for his research equipment, Ethan tried to make sense of the situation. He glanced at Ariazala from the corner of his eye. She was watching the stars pass by outside the window, her hands folded delicately in her lap. Every so often, she would murmur to herself in a language she couldn't understand, and a strange vibration would ripple through the car. He couldn't deny the sense of wonder and fear that mingled in his chest. He said cautiously, most humans would call this impossible. They'd say you're not real, that I'm imagining it. Ariazala turned to him slowly, a hint of a smile on her lips. I got the real. You see me. Feel? Yes. Yes, Ethan said, his voice trembling. I feel it. I see it, but I don't understand it. Not yet. She nodded, as if that was all she needed. Then you teach me. You help me. Only you. Understand? Ethan exhaled slowly. He knew his life had just changed in a way he could never have imagined. The desert night stretched around them, silent but for the whispering wind, carrying their shared secret. Out here, far from the world, a human and an alien sat together in a small car, staring at the stars, each wondering what would happen next. Neither of them realized that this moment, strange and impossible as it was, would mark the beginning of a journey. Neither of them could have predicted a journey that would test courage, trust, and the strange, undeniable pull of connection that could exist even across galaxies. Hours passed in quiet observation. Ethan occasionally checked his camera, but his mind was more on Ariazala than on the meteors he had originally come to photograph. Her presence filled the small car with a strange energy, one that was calm, yet thrilling. She asked simple questions about the stars, about life on Earth, and about humans. Ethan answered as best as he could, careful to keep everything understandable, yet sensing that some truths might be too cosmic and complicated for her. As the first light of dawn began to creep over the desert horizon, painting the sky in soft oranges and pinks, Ethan realized he was no longer afraid. Instead, he felt a cautious excitement. Here was someone or something who truly believed in him, who had chosen him for reasons he could not yet comprehend. And for the first time, he wondered whether he could live up to that expectation. Ariazala turned toward him, her glowing eyes reflecting the soft dawn light. Tomorrow, we start. Learn, she said softly. Ethan nodded, unsure whether he was ready, but willing. He knew one thing for certain. His life had changed forever, and somewhere in the vast desert, under the slowly brightening sky, the impossible had become real. The morning light filtered softly through the small windows of Ethan's desert cabin, painting the walls with golden streaks. Outside, the wind whispered across the sand, carrying the quiet sounds of a world that was just waking up. Ethan sat at his small wooden table, sipping a cup of strong coffee, while Ariazala watched him with a calm intensity that made the air in the room feel alive. She had spent the night quietly observing, her silver skin faintly glowing in the dim light, her large violet-blue eyes reflecting curiosity and focus. She was unlike anyone Ethan had ever met, not only because of her appearance, but because of the way she seemed to understand things without needing words. Ethan, she said softly, her voice musical and gentle. We talk you tell me, Earth, people, sky, stars. Ethan set his mug down carefully. He had prepared himself for questions, but he was still unsure how much he could explain. All right, he said slowly, I'll try. There's a lot to understand about our world and about the stars. But first, I need to know. Ariazala, where exactly did you come from? You said Zernith, but what is it? Is it another planet? Ariazala nodded, her hands folded in her lap. Yes, planet far, very far. From here, many light years, my people. Explorers observe, other worlds learn, other beings was. She paused, as if deciding how much to reveal. We find humans? Rare, very rare. Only few, capable, understand beyond surface. Ethan leaned back, his mind spinning. You're saying humans are special in some way, compared to other beings you've met? Yes, she replied simply. You have feelings? You understand stars' life, emotion, not only mind, also heart. Very rare. In universe, Ethan swallowed. It was overwhelming, but in a strange way, it felt flattering. And you chose me. Why me? There are billions of people on Earth. Ariazala's eyes glimmered with sincerity. You observe stars. Quietly, you think deeply, understand feelings. Alone, you rare, ideal I need. Human like you. Only you. Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine. He had always thought he was ordinary, just a student who liked to look at the sky. And now, an alien an alien from another star system was telling him he was extraordinary. The words were strange, yet her tone carried an honesty that was impossible to dismiss. He looked out the window at the endless desert, the sunlight glinting off the sand, and tried to calm his racing thoughts. All right, he said finally. Let's say I believe you. For now, what do you want from me? Are you here for help, for friendship, or something else? Ariazala tilted her head, considering I learn, observe, Earth, learn humans, understand, life, feelings, then maybe, partnership, only possible, with one human, rare, like you, must be. I teach me everything. Ethan blinked, feeling the weight of her words. Partnership. The idea seemed impossible, even frightening, and yet, when he looked at her, he saw no threat, no trickery, only an earnest desire to connect, to understand, and perhaps, to trust him. All right, he said cautiously. We'll start slowly. I'll show you things, teach you, but you have to promise me something. Ariazala's eyes widened slightly. Promise what? You have to follow my rules, Ethan said. No sudden movements in public, no speaking to anyone outside this cabin, and you need to try to understand humans in your own way, not just mimic what you see in movies or books. She nodded solemnly. I promise. Trust, you, learn, slowly, understand, Earth. For the rest of the morning, Ethan tried to explain the basics of human life. He told her about food, clothing, simple social rules, and how humans communicated through words, gestures, and expressions. Ariazala listened intently, her large eyes following every movement, every gesture, every change in his tone. She asked questions constantly, some of them simple, some of them surprisingly deep. Why do humans hide feelings? She asked at one point, tilting her head. Why do people pretend? Ethan paused, thinking carefully. Sometimes people are afraid of being hurt, afraid of losing someone, afraid of being judged. It's complicated, but it's part of being human. She nodded slowly, absorbing the explanation. I understand. Feelings important, not weak. I must learn, protect, respect. After lunch, Ethan decided to show her the stars properly. He set up his telescope outside, the sunlight already softening as the afternoon faded into evening. Ariazala followed him silently, her presence calm but magnetic. When he pointed the telescope at a distant planet, she leaned in, fascinated, her fingers brushing the metal carefully as if afraid to disturb it. Are worlds like my home? She asked softly, her voice full of awe. Yes, Ethan said. Some are very different, some similar, and all of them have their own mysteries. Ariazala stared through the telescope, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. I wish to see more, understand everything, learn about humans and stars. Together, Ethan felt a strange warmth spread through his chest. She wasn't demanding, she wasn't threatening. She was curious, sincere, and willing to learn. And for some reason, her trust made him feel responsible not just for her safety, but for helping her understand the world she had traveled so far to explore. As night fell, the desert sky lit up with a million stars. Ethan showed her the constellations, explaining their stories, how humans had observed them for thousands of years, and how people sometimes found meaning in their patterns. Ariazala listened quietly, occasionally asking questions that were surprisingly thoughtful. Stars connect. Life, humans, find meaning. Universe? Yes, Ethan said. People look to the stars and wonder. About life, about who they are, about the future. It gives hope, and sometimes guidance. She nodded slowly. I see. Humans, different than other beings I meet. Heart, mind, spirit, strong, delicate, all together. The night passed in quiet wonder, punctuated by occasional laughter, as she tried to imitate simple human gestures, like stretching or yawning, but did so in a graceful, almost otherworldly way. Ethan found himself laughing along. The sound strange but comforting in the stillness of the desert. For the first time, he felt that the impossible wasn't impossible, it was simply real. Over the next few days, they settled into a routine. Ethan showed her more about Earth, simple human tools, food, and music. Ariazala watched with fascination, asking questions and making notes on a strange glowing device she carried. She tried to mimic human behaviors, sometimes succeeding, sometimes hilariously failing, like attempting to balance a spoon on her fingers while observing the way humans ate. Ethan couldn't help but chuckle, and in those moments, a bond began to form, fragile but undeniable. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ariazala looked at him seriously. Ethan, my people will come, they watch, I may be called back, even if I choose. Stay. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. Your people, they'll take you away. Yes, unless they see purpose only. Rare human can make decision. Mine, I choose. You, but they may not accept. Ethan's heart pounded. The reality of her situation was clearer now. This wasn't just about curiosity or learning. It was a choice that could change her life forever. And somehow, she had chosen him. For reasons he didn't yet fully understand, she trusted him with her decision, with her future. He reached out and touched her hand gently, feeling the soft warmth of her skin, surprisingly human despite its unusual silver hue. We'll figure this out, he said quietly. I don't know how, but we'll find a way. You're not alone in this. Ariazala's eyes softened, and she nodded. I trust. You understand me. That night, under the vast desert sky, they sat side by side, silent except for the whispering wind. Ethan felt a strange mixture of fear, excitement, and responsibility. Arya Sala's presence was both comforting and extraordinary, a living reminder that the universe was far bigger, far stranger, and far more beautiful than he had ever imagined. And as he looked at her glowing eyes in the moonlight, he realized that the journey they had begun together was only just starting, and it would test everything he thought he knew about life, trust, and the power of connection. Days passed in a strange, quiet rhythm. Ethan and Ariazala had settled into a routine in the small desert cabin, but every moment was charged with curiosity, wonder, and a growing sense of urgency. Ariazala was learning about humans quickly, but she still had so much to understand, and Ethan was learning just as much about her, discovering that there were limits to what he had ever believed possible. One afternoon, Ethan was sitting at the table, writing notes about the stars. When Ariazala approached him, her glowing eyes serious. "Ethan, must ask, question. Important, question." Ethan looked up from his notebook, sensing the weight in her tone. "All right, what is it?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice to a quiet, almost reverent whisper. "What must I do to marry you, human?" Ethan froze, his pen hovering above the page. His heart raced, and he felt a sudden heat rise to his face. He had known she was sincere in her trust and curiosity, but this was something entirely different. Marriage, to him, the words sounded impossible, almost unreal, yet the intensity in her gaze made it impossible to dismiss as a joke. "I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice shaking slightly. "This isn't like anything I've ever experienced. I'm not sure humans even think about marriage like that so quickly, and he trailed off, unable to find words that could explain the whirlwind of thoughts and emotions in his mind. Ariazala's expression remained calm, but her eyes glimmered with determination. Not joke. Serious. I choose. You must understand. Human, love, feelings share, life." Ethan leaned back in his chair, running his hands through his hair. He had spent hours thinking about her, wondering why she had chosen him, trying to rationalize the impossible. And now she had made it clear she wasn't asking she wasn't curious for the sake of curiosity. She wanted a bond that, in human terms, was sacred and lifelong. "Really want this?" he asked carefully, almost afraid of the answer. "Yes," she said simply. Travel. Long. Search. Many humans. None suitable. Only you. Cannot stop it. Cannot wait. No, if possible. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. He knew he had to be honest with her. Ariazala marriage, in human terms, is more than trust or curiosity. It's a bond. It's a promise. It's about understanding each other, about sharing life, not just for a day, but for many years. "Are you ready for that?" She nodded slowly, her large eyes unwavering. "Ready? Willing? Risk? Everything? Only human?" Ethan's mind raced. He wanted to believe her, but the idea was overwhelming. He had grown up reading about the stars, dreaming about life beyond Earth. But he had never imagined that someone from another world would choose him, that he could become part of something so extraordinary. Yet, when he looked at her, the truth was undeniable. She wasn't playing a game. She wasn't testing him. She was sincere, and she had come across galaxies to find him. "All right," he said slowly, finally finding his voice. "If we're going to even consider this, you have to understand more about humans, not just the good things, not just what you read in books or see in movies, the whole picture. Love is complicated. It's not just feeling. It's patience, compromise, understanding. Are you willing to learn all of that?" "Yes," she replied immediately. Do anything, understand, fully be worthy." "You?" Ethan nodded, feeling a mix of awe and responsibility. He realized that if she truly wanted this bond, he would have to guide her through human emotions, human behavior, human culture, and that was no small task. It was not just about showing her the stars or teaching her simple rules, it was about teaching her life, with all its beauty and all its struggles. Over the next days, Ethan began to explain the intricacies of human relationships. He spoke about trust, about honesty, about compromise, and about patience. He shared stories from his own life, moments of happiness and failure, small acts of kindness, and times when people hurt each other unintentionally. Ariazala listened quietly, sometimes asking questions, sometimes remaining silent, absorbing every word. "Why humans hurt each other?" she asked one evening, her voice soft, almost sorrowful. "Sometimes it's fear," Ethan explained. "Fear of losing someone, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being alone. Sometimes it's just misunderstanding. Humans are complicated. We try to protect ourselves, and sometimes that protection hurts others." She nodded slowly, her fingers tracing invisible patterns in the air. "I understand. On my world, beings, more direct, less fear, emotions, simpler. But humans can place, delicate, strong. Altogether." Ethan smiled faintly. "Yes, exactly. And if we want to have a life together, we have to learn to navigate that complexity. It's not always easy, but it's worth it." Ariazala's eyes glimmered with determination. Ready for everything? Teach me. Human heart. Teach me how love. Human. The next challenge came naturally, showing her the nuances of daily life. the small, seemingly insignificant actions that carried deep meaning. Ethan demonstrated cooking, laughing as she tried to imitate him, spilling ingredients or misjudging measurements. He explained how humans use gestures and facial expressions to communicate feelings, how a touch, a smile, or even a sigh could convey emotions words could not. Ariazala practiced diligently, her large eyes reflecting concentration and determination. "You humans very strange," she said one day, smiling faintly. "So many rules, gestures, signs, yet full of beauty, feelings, care, connection." Ethan chuckled. "Yes, very strange, but that's what makes it beautiful. And if we learn to understand it, it can be amazing." Evenings were spent under the stars. Ethan taught her about constellations, planets, and the mythology behind them. She asked questions about life on Earth, about the meaning humans assigned to patterns in the sky, and about the dreams people held in their hearts. She shared stories of her own world, of the explorers who had trained her, of the long journey she had undertaken across galaxies. Ethan listened, fascinated, realizing that her perspective was unlike anything he had ever known. "You traveled so far, risked so much to find me," he said one night, staring at her in the dim starlight. "Why?" She turned her glowing eyes to him, steady and unwavering. "I must find human who understand fully. Only one can share life, bond, heart, you, rare, ideal." Cannot stop. The weight of her words pressed on him. It was one thing to hear about extraterrestrial beings, to dream about contact. It was another to realize that someone had chosen him, across galaxies, for reasons he did not fully understand. And yet, as he looked at her, he felt a strange sense of trust, a feeling that this was not a mistake, that their meeting had a purpose beyond comprehension. Over the following week, their connection deepened. They shared meals, laughter, stories, and quiet moments of reflection. Ariazala continued to learn, adapting to human behavior with patience and determination. Ethan found himself teaching her not just the practical aspects of human life, but also the emotional: how to listen, how to empathize, how to understand the subtleties of human expression. One evening, as the desert sky shimmered with stars, Ariazala spoke quietly. "Ethan, I may be called back. My people watch, observe. If I return, must leave you." Ethan's heart clenched. The possibility had been there from the beginning, but hearing it aloud made it real. "I don't know, but I can't ask you to leave if you don't want to. If you choose to stay, we'll face whatever comes together." Her eyes glimmered with emotion, and she reached for his hand. "I choose. Stay, you, Shiman. Only you understand me." That night, as they sat quietly under the vast expanse of stars, Ethan realized that their journey had reached a new level. It was no longer just about curiosity or learning it. It was about choice, trust, and commitment. Ariazala had made her choice, and now it was his turn to understand the responsibility of that choice. The desert was silent, except for the soft whisper of wind over sand. Ethan looked at her glowing eyes, her silver skin reflecting the starlight, and felt a mixture of fear, awe, and a deep, growing sense of connection. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing: this was real, and nothing would ever be the same again. For the first time, he understood that love, in its purest form, could exist across worlds, across galaxies, and that the impossible could become reality when two beings chose to trust each other fully. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between Ethan and Ariazala grew stronger. The desert cabin, once just a quiet retreat for his astronomy work, had become a place of discovery, laughter, and learning. Ariazala was eager to understand humans in every way she could. She wanted to grasp the small details that made life meaningful, the kind of things Ethan had never thought much about until now. She asked about emotions, about traditions, and even about the seemingly trivial habits humans carried in their daily lives. One morning, as sunlight spilled through the cabin windows, Ariazala watched Ethan as he prepared breakfast. "Ethan," she said carefully, "why? Humans eat same food every day, not energy only." Ethan laughed softly. "Humans? Food isn't just energy. It's comfort, taste, memory. Some meals remind people of home, family, or friends. Sharing food, it's a way to connect." She tilted her head, processing the idea. "So, food is feelings?" "Yes," Ethan said, smiling. "It's a little bit of both, physical and emotional." Ariazala nodded, her glowing eyes thoughtful. "I understand. Must learn. Eat like human, share feelings." She reached for the small bowl Ethan had prepared, handling it delicately, as if the act of eating itself was sacred. Over the next few days, Ethan focused on teaching her the subtle gestures and social behaviors humans relied on every day. How to smile genuinely, how to comfort someone without words, how to recognize when someone needed space and when they wanted attention. Ariazala was patient and determined, though sometimes her efforts were unintentionally humorous. She would bow too deeply when greeting him, or tilt her head in odd ways, mimicking expressions she had seen but not fully understood. Ethan could not help but laugh, and her laughter, soft, musical, and unrestrained, filled the cabin with warmth. "You laugh, so strange but beautiful," Ariazala said one evening, her voice full of wonder. Humans, emotions, complicated. Not simple yet, strong. Yes, Ethan replied. Complicated, but that's what makes it real. As she learned more about human behavior, Ariazala also became fascinated with human creativity. Ethan showed her drawings, photographs, music, and books. She tried to mimic the notes on a piano, the strokes of a brush, even the cadence of spoken poetry. Sometimes she failed in ways that made Ethan chuckle, and sometimes she succeeded, producing moments of surprising beauty that seemed beyond her abilities. One evening, as they sat beneath the stars, Ariazala asked something that surprised Ethan. Why? Humans hurt each other, even when love present. Ethan paused, considering his words carefully. Sometimes, people make mistakes. Sometimes, fear, misunderstanding, pride, anger, all of it mixes together. Even when they care, they can hurt each other without meaning to. That's part of being human. Ariazala's eyes shimmered faintly. I must understand, avoid mistakes, protect, love, fully. Ethan reached out and touched her hand gently. You're learning, Ariazala. That's what matters. Understanding takes time. No one gets it right all at once. The bond between them deepened in small, quiet ways. Ariazala began anticipating his routines, preparing small meals, organizing their space, and even trying to predict what he might need before he asked. She didn't just imitate. She observed and learned in a way that was both thoughtful and considerate. Ethan, in turn, found himself trusting her more and more, feeling that she was not only capable of understanding humanity, but capable of contributing to it in ways he had never imagined. Yet, not everything was simple or easy. Ariazala's presence in the desert cabin could not remain secret forever. One afternoon, while Ethan was making a brief trip to the nearby town for supplies, she attempted to explore a human vehicle on her own. Despite her intelligence, she accidentally set off the horn repeatedly, startling a passing hiker. Ethan returned just in time to see her standing nervously beside the SUV, glowing faintly, trying to apologize in broken English. A human, loud mistake, she said, bowing slightly. Ethan couldn't help but laugh, though he was relieved no one else had noticed. It's okay. Accidents happen. That's part of learning. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with concern. Learning? Difficult. Humans so many. Rules, gestures, actions. Must remember. Yes, Ethan said gently, but you're doing better than most. You're patient, and you care. That's what counts. Even as she adapted to human life, Ariazala remained deeply aware of the larger consequences of her choices. One night, under the vast desert sky, she spoke softly. Ethan, my people, may come soon. Observe, retrieve. Me, I choose. You may be forbidden. Stay. Ethan's heart sank. The reality he had been avoiding now loomed in front of him. Your people. They'll force you to go? Possibly. Yes. Unless. Understand purpose. Must. Test. Decision. Mine choose. Stay only. With human. Rare. Like you. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. The choice she had made was not without risk, and the responsibility now rested with him to ensure that she could navigate it safely. We'll figure it out, he said firmly. No matter what happens, we'll find a way. Over the following days, Ariazala focused on understanding human emotions at a deeper level. She practiced empathy, attempting to feel what others felt, and observed Ethan's reactions closely to learn how humans expressed care and concern. She asked him to share memories of family, friends, and even moments of failure, so she could grasp the full range of human experience. You, humans, fragile, yet strong, she said one night, watching him with an intensity that made him pause. Love, care, emotion, all mixed. Life, beautiful, yet fragile. Yes, Ethan replied, and that's why it's worth protecting. That's why it matters. Their days became a balance of learning and living. Ariazala learned to cook more complex meals, to mimic human gestures naturally, and to express emotions in ways that were meaningful and sincere. She laughed, joked, and even became playful in ways that surprised Ethan. Her presence brought a new energy into the cabin, making it feel alive in a way he had never experienced before. Yet, the knowledge that her people might come at any moment cast a quiet shadow over their life. They both knew that their time together was fragile, that every moment was precious. Ethan realized that he was no longer just teaching her. He was learning from her as well. Her perspective on life, on trust, and on connection challenged him to see the world differently. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the desert in hues of gold and pink, Ariazala spoke quietly. Ethan, if they come, musty, fight with me. Ethan hesitated, considering, don't know if I can fight them, but I can stand with you. Yes, I can help you. Make them understand why staying is your choice. Her eyes glimmered with gratitude. I trust you only. Human understand, fully my choice. Yours help, protect bond, life. They sat together in silence, the weight of the coming challenge settling between them. Yet, despite the uncertainty, there was also a sense of hope, a quiet belief that together, they could navigate whatever obstacles lay ahead. The bond they had formed, built on learning, trust, and genuine connection, had become a source of strength for both of them. As the night deepened, the stars above them sparkled like scattered jewels. Ethan looked at Ariazala, her silver skin reflecting the moonlight, her glowing eyes filled with trust and determination. He realized that their journey was no longer just about learning or survival, it was about commitment, courage, and the quiet power of choosing to trust and love despite uncertainty. For the first time, he understood that the real challenge wasn't teaching her to be human, it was both of them learning to navigate the fragile, beautiful complexity of life and emotion together. And as he reached for her hand, feeling the warmth and sincerity in her touch, he knew that whatever the universe might bring, they would face it side by side. The desert wind whispered softly, carrying the promise of unknown trials and new discoveries, and in that quiet, golden night, two beings, one human, one alien, prepared to face the future, bound by trust, curiosity, and a connection that transcended worlds. The desert sky was vast and quiet, stretching endlessly as if it were waiting for something to happen. Ethan and Ariazala had grown accustomed to the rhythms of their days together, but neither could forget the reality that her people might come at any moment. The thought hung over them like a shadow, sometimes subtle, sometimes sharp, but never gone entirely. Every glance, every conversation, carried the weight of possibility, the possibility that she could be taken away, and that all they had built might vanish in an instant. One late afternoon, while Ethan repaired the small telescope he used to track the stars, a sudden ripple of light appeared on the horizon. Ariazala's eyes glowed brighter, and she moved closer to him instinctively. Ethan, they hear? My people observe. Check must act soon. Ethan's heart thumped. We knew this could happen, but it's happening sooner than I expected. He glanced at her, seeing the mixture of determination and anxiety in her glowing eyes. We need a plan, not to fight, but to convince them, show them why your choice matters. Ariazala nodded, her silver skin shimmering under the desert sun. Must show. Choice? Mine. Understand mine. Life. They spent the next hours preparing. Ethan explained how humans sometimes resolved conflicts through communication, reasoning, and demonstration of trust rather than force. Ariazala absorbed every detail, analyzing human behaviors, expressions, and emotions. Together, they rehearsed ways to explain their bond, to show sincerity, and to express a choice that was both conscious and heartfelt. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the ripple of light returned, brighter this time, forming a column that reached from the sky to the desert floor. A soft hum filled the air, vibrating through the sand and the soles of Ethan's shoes. Figures began to emerge, tall, elegant, and glowing, similar to Ariazala but more formal and imposing. These were her people, the observers and authorities of her world, here to ensure she had not strayed from her duties or responsibilities. Ethan stepped forward cautiously, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. We're not here to cause trouble, he said calmly. We just want to explain. Please, let us talk first. Ariazala's people regarded him with curiosity and quiet authority. One of them, taller than the rest, spoke in a melodic voice that resonated through the desert. Ariazala, you have deviated from assigned mission. Explain your actions. Why remain with human? Ariazala stepped beside Ethan, standing tall despite the tension in the air. I choose human. Understand. Earth, humans, connection, trust, bond, real. I do not leave. Because. Choice. Mine. The alien authorities observed silently, their glowing eyes studying her, then shifting to Ethan. He could feel their scrutiny, the weight of expectation pressing down on him. I understand you may not agree with her choice, he said slowly, his voice calm but firm, but she has reasons. She trusts me, and I respect her choice. That's what matters. You've taught me about responsibility, patience, and understanding. Now I ask you to see the sincerity in this connection. There was a long, tense pause. The desert wind whispered over the sands, carrying the hum of light from the otherworldly visitors. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. This moment, delicate and powerful, could determine everything. Ariazala's eyes met his, glowing softly with trust, and he realized that he had to speak from the heart, leaving no doubt about his sincerity. You've crossed galaxies, risked your place among your people, and chosen me, he continued, his voice steady. That is not a mistake. I am not perfect, and I do not fully understand your world, but I do understand choice, trust, and commitment. If staying here with me is what you believe is right, I will support you. I will honor your decision. Ariazala's people were silent, their bodies reflecting light in quiet, subtle waves. Finally, the tallest figure spoke again, its tone carrying both authority and curiosity. Ariazala, you risk exile, your choice. Deliberate, fully understood. I fully understood, Ariazala said, her voice clear and unwavering. I choose human life bond, connection, nothing else matters. Another pause followed, and then the alien leader regarded Ethan once more. You human, understand responsibility, choice, burden, future, together. Ethan nodded. Yes, I understand. I am willing. We both are willing. That is why she stays. The desert was quiet again, the wind soft, carrying the scent of sand and sagebrush. Slowly, the figures of her people began to shimmer and fade, They had accepted her decision. Ariazala exhaled softly, relief washing over her features, and she turned to Ethan, a faint smile on her lips. Ethan, choice, mine. Accept it, I stay. With human, you. Ethan felt a rush of emotion he could not fully describe. Relief, awe, happiness all mingled together. He reached out, taking her hand in his, feeling the warmth of her touch despite the otherworldly glow of her skin. I'm glad you stayed, he said softly. I'm glad you trusted me. Over the next days, life returned to a calm rhythm, though now with a new depth. Ariazala continued to learn about humanity, but now there was a shared understanding between them that transcended language, culture, and even species. They laughed together, shared stories, and continued their exploration of the stars, each night marveling at the vast universe that had brought them together. One evening, as they watched the meteors streak across the dark desert sky, Ariazala spoke softly. Ethan, life. Strange, unexpected, yet full beauty I never imagined. Connection, like this. Ethan smiled, squeezing her hand gently. Neither did I, but now that it's here, I can't imagine life any other way. She looked at him with glowing eyes, a mixture of gratitude and wonder in her expression. I thank you, Hyun, understand, more than anyone. Could you choice, support, trust, all gift. Precious, Ethan chuckled softly. I guess we've both learned a lot. About stars, about life, about trust, about love. Yes, love, human, real, deep, strong, important, understand fully. Now, days turned into weeks, and the desert cabin became a small world of its own. Ariazala adapted to human life with grace, learning not just the practical aspects, but the emotional and relational complexities that made life meaningful. Ethan learned from her as well, realizing that there were ways to see the world he had never considered, ways to appreciate simplicity, beauty, and connection that transcended his usual perspective. Their nights were spent under the stars, sharing dreams, fears, and hopes for the future. They discussed the mysteries of the universe, of life on other planets, and of the strange, wonderful journey that had brought them together. Ariazala's presence made every star seem brighter, every moment more precious. One night, as they lay side by side in the desert sand, Ethan looked at her glowing eyes and spoke softly. We've come so far, from a chance encounter in the desert to this life together. I can't imagine going back to the way things were. Ariazala reached for his hand, intertwining her fingers with his. Neither can one. Human life, fragile, yet strong. Together, we face future, whatever comes. Trust, bond, unbroken, always. Ethan nodded, feeling the truth in her words. Their journey had been improbable, impossible even, but here they were, two beings from different worlds, bound by trust, understanding, and the quiet power of choice. They had faced fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and had emerged with a connection that transcended galaxies. The desert wind whispered softly around them, carrying the sense of possibility, of new beginnings, and of a life built on mutual respect and love. For Ethan and Ariazala, the universe was no longer just a vast, empty expanse to observe. It was a place of shared experience, of wonder, and of infinite potential. As the stars shimmered overhead, reflecting in Ariazala's glowing eyes, Ethan realized that this story, the story of trust, courage, and connection, was only beginning. Whatever the future held, they would face it together, bound by the rarest and most precious gift of all, a choice freely made, and a love that defied the boundaries of worlds. And in the quiet desert night, under the endless sky, human and alien sat together, looking at the stars, knowing that their bond had changed them both forever.